File number 029. Status, restricted. Case label, expunged/unresolved. Subject, the woman who went inside. Hidden truth files, accessing record. In 1973, a woman walked into a psychiatric hospital with a notebook hidden in her coat. She wasn't sick. She was there to watch. She told no one where she was going. She signed herself in under a false name, a name that appeared on no prior medical records, no insurance files, nothing. The intake nurse asked her why she was there. She said she heard things that weren't there. That was enough. By the end of her first night, she had already filled 4 pages. And by the time she left 11 days later, she had documented something that the facility's own administration would later describe, in a classified internal memo, as, quote, a pattern of staff behavior inconsistent with disclosed protocol. She saw it before they admitted it existed. The question no one has ever fully answered is, how? To understand what makes this case strange, you have to understand what was happening in psychiatric research in the early 1970s. 1 year before, in 1972, a psychologist named David Rosenhan had published a study that shook the entire psychiatric establishment. He sent 8 mentally healthy individuals into psychiatric hospitals across the United States. Each one claimed to hear a single symptom, a voice saying a word like thud. Every single one was admitted. Most were held for weeks. And not one was identified as sane by the hospital staff, though other patients sometimes noticed. The study, titled On Being Sane in Insane Places, became one of the most controversial documents in the history of mental health research. It raised a question no institution wanted to answer directly: if trained professionals couldn't tell the difference between sick and healthy, what exactly were they doing inside those walls? The woman at the center of file number 029 read that study. And she decided to go further. Her name, her real name, was never released publicly. In research circles she became known only as Subject D, a designation applied retroactively by the team that attempted to document her case in the late 1990s. What is known is that she had a background in social science. She was not affiliated with any university at the time of the admission. She paid her own intake fees. She carried the notebook, a standard wire-bound composition book, taped inside the lining of a winter coat. On her first day inside, she began noting the time gaps between patient call requests and staff responses. The average delay she recorded was 47 minutes. The facility's published patient care standards at the time stated a maximum response time of 15 minutes. That was day 1. By day 3, she had observed something she described in her notes as, and this is a direct transcription from the 2019 Declassified File Review, a practiced system of deliberate non-acknowledgement. Not cruelty. Not chaos. A system. By day 5, she had developed a hypothesis she didn't expect to have. She had gone in looking for evidence of neglect. What she found instead was coordination. Specific staff members would rotate through the ward on predictable cycles, but the rotation pattern she observed did not match the posted schedule on the staff bulletin board. She noted the discrepancy in her notebook. She noted it again on day 6, and again on day 7. The pattern held. Staff who were scheduled to be on duty often appeared to swap shifts in ways that weren't reflected in the public-facing roster. To a casual observer, this could mean nothing. But to someone tracking patient response times alongside staff presence, it revealed something stranger. The response delays weren't random. They correlated almost perfectly with the presence of a specific rotation of staff, the same 4 individuals, cycling on an unposted schedule. When those 4 were on the floor, call lights stayed lit for an average of 51 minutes. When other staff covered, the average dropped to 19. The 4 minutes over standard wasn't an accident. It was a signature. She requested discharge on day 9. They held her for 2 more days. The stated reason, recorded in her official patient file, was insufficient evidence of stabilization. She had never claimed to be unstable in any way beyond the initial false symptom. She had behaved in every measurable way as a cooperative, lucid, calm patient throughout her stay. The delay made no clinical sense. It did make a different kind of sense, though, when you consider what happened next. On the morning of day 10, a ward administrator she had never seen before entered the common room and sat across from her in a one-on-one conversation. Not an interview. Not a formal evaluation. A conversation. He asked her what she thought of the facility. She said it seemed fine. He asked if she had any concerns. She said no. He nodded, made no notes, and left. She wrote 4 pages about the conversation that night. And on day 11, she was released. No explanation for the hold. No explanation for the visit. Just a signature on the discharge form and a walk to the front door. 3 weeks after her discharge, the facility published what it called a routine operational review. The document was distributed internally, it was never meant for public access. It described, and this is where the case becomes genuinely strange, observed inconsistencies in patient call response documentation, unscheduled modification of staff rotation assignments, and the need for revised protocols around non-clinical patient interaction by administrative personnel. 3 specific phrases. All 3 appeared, almost word for word, in Nora's private notes. Notes that had never left her coat lining. Notes no one at the facility had ever seen. Or so she believed. The document also referenced an internal review initiated on what it described as an anonymous informant basis, with a case number that, when she eventually tracked down a researcher who had access to institutional records decades later, corresponded to an intake file opened the week before she checked herself in. Someone had flagged the facility. Before she arrived. The informant file had been opened 6 days before her admission. She was not the whistleblower. She was the response. She gave one interview about the case. It was conducted in 1999, 26 years after her stay. The interviewer was a graduate researcher studying institutional oversight failures. She spoke for 3 hours. The recording exists in a private archive. One quote from it was included in a 2019 academic paper on the Rosenhan follow-up studies, and the quote, which the paper published with her permission, is this. "The thing that stayed with me wasn't the delays, or the administrator, or even the document. It was the knowledge that I had gone in thinking I was the one watching. And by the time I left, I wasn't sure which direction the observation had been running." The original data from the follow-up study she had been tangentially connected to, the study conducted by researchers attempting to replicate and extend Rosenhan's findings, was reported as destroyed by the lead researcher in 1981. The stated reason was a lab fire. There was a fire in a building 2 blocks from where the data was stored. The data storage location did not burn. The researcher retired the following year. The original case number from the informant file was never matched to a named individual in any accessible record. And the administrator who visited Nora on day 10? No employee by that description, in that role, was ever found in the facility's staffing records for that period. He was either never logged, or he was removed. File number 029 remains unresolved. The identity of the original informant has never been confirmed. The data that might have answered the most uncomfortable questions no longer exists in any accessible form. And the woman who went inside, who documented what she saw with nothing but a wire-bound notebook and a coat, gave one interview in 26 years. And then she went quiet again. Maybe she decided the truth was documented enough. Or maybe she decided that some of what she observed wasn't meant to follow her out. If something about this case doesn't sit right with you, if there's a detail you want to push on, a theory you want to build, a part of the file you think we missed, leave it below. Because sometimes the people who notice things don't work in institutions. They're just watching from the right angle. File closed. For now.